ANC NEC member Phoebe Potgieter says the party finds itself in a situation where it has to adapt or die. The Mpumalanga Health Department says 10 of the 19 learners who were injured during a collision of a goods train and a scholar bus in the Mafube village have been discharged from hospital. A firefighter has been rushed to hospital after sustaining chemical burns while battling a blaze that engulfed several buildings in Pietermaritzburg. It has just gone 12 noon Central African time. A very good afternoon to you and welcome to the week ahead. We are coming to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. You can, of course, participate in the conversations of the next 2 hours. Give us a ring, if you will, on 011-714-0680, 0681 or 0682. I am Sebenzile Nkambule. Welcome. All right, let's start here this afternoon. The ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the party's National Executive Committee meeting discussed the ANC's performance of the May elections. The ANC lost its majority after its support declined in the polls. This led to the formation of the Government of National Unity. Ramaphosa spoke to SABC News on the sidelines of the ANC Lekgotla in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. For more on this, let's cross live to SABC News reporter Natasha Piri, who is at the Birchwood Hotel. Natasha, a very good afternoon to you. What can we expect from the first day of the Lekgotla? I understand you also are standing there with interim spokesperson Zuko Godlimpi. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sebenzile, and to our SABC viewers. Well, we just actually concluded a speech. We heard the ANC president delivering his opening address to delegates that are in attendance here at the ANC Lekgotla, and of course Alliance members also here. And the key main tenets of his speech, he focused really around the economy and the economic recovery, I beg your pardon. Also the ANC's approach to local government and of course renewal of the party. These will be the main plans or the main key tenets that will be discussed throughout this 3-day Lekgotla. It is also interesting that the president mentioned that there will be a coalition's task team that will be deployed to various hung municipalities, and of course they'll be helping those municipalities, starting off with the city of Johannesburg. And I actually want to have this conversation with the interim spokesperson of the ANC, Mr. Zuko Godlimpi. Zuko, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. I think it's quite interesting that this coalition's task team will be helping those hung municipalities, especially ahead of the local government elections in 2026. Is this a mechanism to actually try win them back?
Yes, so the coalition's task team was set up in 2023 already, and it has been working since 2023. And one of the mandates of the task team is essentially to assist to stabilize local government, not just from a leadership point of view, but to understand the underperformance problems that these municipalities are facing. And it works side by side with the local government intervention task team that is led by Comrade Parkstow on the other hand. So the idea is to really stabilize local government, ensure that services are provided to the people, because one of the major issues about this election was that it was fought on the local government platform. The things that people were worried about are really a problem at the local government level. So the ANC has an obligation, as it talks about economic recovery, it has got to also deal with the service delivery problem. So the task team has been doing work for some time, but it has now been given a month to provide a report to the National Working Committee and the officials about what course of action must be taken. The problems in the city of Johannesburg specifically are related to the instability of electricity supply, regardless of the fact that we've dealt with load shedding. So the municipality is unable to maintain its distribution infrastructure for electricity. Recently you saw that they had to pass a decision to raise 2.4 billion rands in a loan in order to run their affairs, which tells you that there are major revenue issues that are related there. There is an infrastructure maintenance problem that exists there. So we've got to go to that level and intervene and really pose the question whether the kind of leadership that is operating at that level does have the requisite technical and strategic capacity to lead the local government sphere out of it. As you may recall, we've already effected changes in the eThekwini municipality. We sent Mayor Cyril Kaba to replace the leadership that was there as part of the recovery plan. And we are going to be doing that across the board in order to improve the predictability of water supply, of electricity, of refuse collection, and to really ensure that people are paying for services that they are receiving.
Okay, Mr. Kotlimpi, talking about the city of Johannesburg specifically, we spoke to you about this issue yesterday. Do you know that? Do you know if the leadership of the ANC in Gauteng will be meeting Mayor Herman Mashaba on the removal of Kabelo Kwamanda?
The task team is a national task team. What the leadership of Gauteng does and who they meet, they can do that at that level, but the decision will be a product of what the national task team chooses to do in consultation with the province. So we can't stop them from meeting other stakeholders in their space. They can do that, but they will have to provide a representation to the coalition's task team, and in considering all the wide range of issues, not just the leadership, but also, as I was saying, the substantive policy and performance matters, then a decision will be made about what to do.
Okay, lastly, consequence management, like the president said, has been a recurring theme. You also spoke about it yesterday, but will we really see your deployees being held accountable? If a president doesn't, perform well, will you, as the ANC, hold them accountable?
We've responded in the eThekwini municipality by changing leadership. We are talking about changing leadership in the city of Johannesburg. The ANC is already rolling out consequence management. It must look like a simple thing. Here are the performance targets that are expected of you. Are you performing? If you are not performing, you are going to be removed. If in my area of deployment in government, I bring excuses only and there is no visibility on the front of economic recovery and industrial policy, the ANC is going to have to drag me by my foot and send me back home.
Zuko, thank you so much for your time. That was the interim spokesperson of the ANC, Mr. Zuko Kotlimpi. Of course, just summing up those themes, especially around what the president had spoke about. And of course, the last one is consequence management, saying that they are actually, implementing it, starting off with eThekwini. And of course, there will be the implementation with the help of the coalition's task team, which is headed to the first city, the city of Johannesburg, next week. Sebenzi, it's quite windy where I am. So for now, I'll just toss back to you in studio.
I can see you, Natasha. Certainly do get warm there. Thank you very much, SABC News reporter Natasha Piri, live to us from the Birchwood Hotel. This after the ANC NEC meeting, and today the first day of the ANC Lekgotla. Let's move on now. The Mpumalanga Education Department says it will take over the burial of the 6 learners who lost their lives on Wednesday evening at Mafube village outside Middelburg. That's after a goods train and a scholar transport bus collided at a level crossing. The bus driver is still receiving treatment in hospital.
The horrific accident claimed the lives of 6 learners after the scholar transport bus they were traveling in failed to stop at the level crossing line. The Mpumalanga Education Department, together with other stakeholders including the bus company, are working together to support the families who lost their children.
We as government have decided through the Premier that we're going to carry all the costs of the funeral. In terms of the memorandum of the memorial service, it is on Wednesday. It will be a mass meeting. We'll have that service on Wednesday. And on Saturday, we are having a mass funeral.
The Mpumalanga Department of Community Safety, Security and Liaison says a preliminary report about the accident will be released soon.
Investigation report into the crash that claimed 6 learners will be made available in due course. Remember, the report is going to look at a number of things. On the part of the behavior of the drivers involved, the vehicles that were involved, the whole environment and everything. And a number of role players will be interviewed in this regard. The police are also involved, as they are obviously investigating cases of culpable homicide. So the report will be very wide-ranging.
The Mpumalanga Health Department has since confirmed that 10 learners have since been discharged from the hospital.
We can indicate that so far we are left with 9 patients that are admitted. 5 are in Middelburg Hospital and 4 are in Witbank Hospital. Those that are very critical because Witbank is one of our tertiary hospitals. But we can indicate that there's 1 patient that we are working with Steve Biko and they're going to send their specialists to come and operate in Malahleni municipality in one of our hospitals there.
The memorial service of the victims will be held on Wednesday and they are expected to be laid to rest on Saturday in a mass funeral. Nhlamulo Mabasa, SABC News, Mbombela.
A firefighter has been rushed to hospital after sustaining chemical burns while battling a blaze that engulfed several buildings in Pietermaritzburg. It is believed that the fire started at a factory and spread to other buildings. The Umsunduzi Fire Services District Commander, Mbulelo Dlamini, says the fire has since been contained.
Online banking is a game changer. I check account balances, I transfer funds, and I can become a multi-millionaire with just one click from literally anywhere. I could become an instant multi-millionaire from here, or even from here. You can become a multi-millionaire anywhere by playing the National Lottery online. You can now also play by using MTN Momo or VodaPay. And if you play today, you don't just stand a chance of winning multi-millions in jackpots. You could also win your share of 2.5 million rand in cash. 100 winners will be selected weekly to win 5,000 rand each. Dala more, winner more now, and get automatic entry for your chance to win. Buy your tickets now on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, MTN Momo, or VodaPay. Panda, Pusha, Play. Ituba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Let's turn our attention to stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers. Joining us this afternoon is Makhudu Sefara, who is the deputy editor of the Sunday Times and the editor of Times Live. Thank you very much for your time with us this afternoon, Makhudu.
Thank you.
There's quite a bit about the ANC. Perhaps we end with that, and let's start with the Sunday Tribune. And they are leading with the headline, KZN trigger happy police. This is an interesting one, right? And people are quite divided around this. They are reporting that at least 20 suspects in July alone died at the hands of the police. Of course, IPID as well, looking into these matters. What does this particular article look at?
Well, they're looking at police killing suspects who were wanted in connection with a number of crimes. And that this has been a trend for a while. I've written several pieces myself for Times Live like a few weeks ago, if not 2 months ago. But in the past week, and so the trend in the past had been that, there'd be 2 major attacks in a month where suspects are killed. And so we're looking at that going back. But this past week, we've had about 3 incidents where the police were going in, shooting at suspects, killing them, and the statements from the police have been the same. So they say, we went in and the suspects shot at the police. Luckily, none of the police officers, and then the police retaliated, and in doing so, killed all the suspects. And the questions have always been, as has been raised there, why is it where there's this shootout between the police and suspects, there isn't anyone who survives to tell the story that the other people who are fighting, I just raised my hands. Like, there isn't any of that. Now, people have called, as it appears there, people have called for there to be a closer look at the police conduct in KwaZulu-Natal. Are these police just executing people, or are the police correctly responding to attacks on them? Because when the police are attacked, they should defend themselves. And, if the police have predetermined that these are dangerous people and they are going in for the kill. We also need to know. But the big question has always been, so how do we know when there isn't anyone left to contradict or support what the police are saying?
To give their side of the story.
Exactly.
Ordinarily, we should, of course, welcome the police essentially doing their job here. But also in this article, they speak about allegedly rogue cops who, of course, are said to one particular one who go out of their way to actually get rid of suspected criminals. And that behavior is being looked into. But also issues of mistaken identity as well here. Surely we should be hearing a lot more from IPID and from... I suppose the SABC have said, look, the police don't investigate themselves. So it's for IPID actually to come out and reassure those who are worried about police conduct.
Yeah, but the difficulty for IPID is that as they go into each and every one of these incidents, the people who are available to speak to them and say this is what happened is the police.
Right.
And out there in society, people are saying, yeah, we have been terrorized by criminals for a long time, and the police, for a change, are coming in and they're eliminating this, whatever other names they use on social media to describe criminals. Right? But the architecture of a constitutional democracy is such that there should be checks and balances, and that where police tell us something, it shouldn't just be us believing what the police are saying without an option of checking and verifying what they're saying against other people's versions. But in the particular case, it's very difficult. And where someone says, look, I think there's rogue cops here who are just out to kill. How do we contradict it when the only voice available there
is that of the police?
We
must move on, but very quickly, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi also saying but 2 days ago that the police are at war.
Yes.
Is that sort of language helpful? It's a very accurate description, right? Given how rife and how violent the nature of crime is, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal. But is that language helpful?
No, it's not. In short. But I think he's using that language because he knows, and we have seen public evidence that his family is supported within the police. He's a provincial commissioner.
Yes.
So the national commissioner has come out in support of the provincial commissioner. And then we said, let's check with the police minister, the new police minister.
Yeah.
But he too has essentially just said, look, the police should try to arrest, as all of us have been arguing. But where anyone raises a firearm against the police must shoot. And as he tries to justify and to try to portray the issue of KZN being kind of different to other areas, he says it's a war.
Yeah.
But the question will be, how are they fighting crime in the Western Cape and in Gauteng? Why is it that the police in Gauteng don't have as many casualties as we're seeing in KwaZulu-Natal?
Yeah.
And it does lend credence, even though that still needs to be supported by evidence, that there's something very wrong happening in KZN.
Yeah. Let's move on then to the city prayers. They're leading there with ANC why we lost the elections. We know they've just had the NEC meeting. Today is the start of the ANC Lekgotla as well. But the report here also looking at blame shifting seemingly within the party. We would have heard the interim spokesperson there as well talking about how service delivery issues they believe were a key factor here.
Yeah. So there's quite a number of factors that the ANC has put on the table as having contributed to its poor performance in the May 29 elections. And so, in fact, I think all the Sunday publications were the NEC briefing yesterday. City Press, Sunday World, Sunday Times, all of them are focusing on what Mdumiseni Ntuli was saying. And what he's saying is that, the ANC can blame other people, but the ANC must also look within.
Yeah.
And when it looks within, it's finding that its own cadres who are deployed in various municipalities have not been doing their work, and that ministers who are deployed at national level, instead of looking at how to reinforce and support people at local government, they are looking at their own issues, and so they've not been helpful. And so he is also saying, or the NEC also said, the root of the problems that the ANC is finding itself in should and can be traced back to the Polokwane conference of 2007, at which former President Zuma was elected. And then there's claims that are not, of course, being made for the first time, that there are people, there's Inkabis who were brought there, that if the outcome of the election didn't go in the manner in which it did, there was going to be violence and all manner of things, but that the seeds of counter-revolution were sown there, and that whatever happened after, it essentially was the ANC unable to cycle back to its true nature, which is different to what happened in 2007. And that, the departure or the expulsion of former President Zuma, which then happened this week, is just cementing the ANC trying to exorcise its demons that started impacting the party in 2007, so there's a whole list. It
sounds
of
as though there's not enough, though, around the electorate, the voter losing faith in the party. I mean, is there enough of that conversation?
Well, I think they tried, but what we're getting is that the ANC is saying that it didn't do enough, but that the circumstances. So they're blaming people who are deployed in various structures of government. Like, for example, they do reflect on load shedding.
Yes.
And they say this was a major problem. We managed to resolve it just before the elections. But as we resolved that problem of load shedding, there was a water problem that then surfaced.
Yeah.
And quite a number of other people, the citizens, believed that load shedding was going to resurface post the elections. And so therefore there was a message, a credibility issue with the messaging from the ANC. They are looking at those things to kind of communicate why the electorate lost faith in the ANC.
Let's talk to the Sunday Times now as well, and we are highlighting the story focusing on the DA chair, the DA federal chair, Helen Zille, and it was a sit-down interview there on where in fact she says that it would be very difficult for the GNU to work without the President Cyril Ramaphosa being there, saying that headline, a lot depends on CR staying.
Yes.
This, of course, would have been also the formation and the configuration of the GNU would have been a key topic this weekend as well. But Helen Zille seems to be irritating one figure in Mbalula, even though in this particular interview she says that they actually have a good working and good professional relationship.
They WhatsApp each other,
yes.
and it's a beautiful interview there that's done by Mike Sluma. We call him Mike. Great stuff. So essentially, what Helen is saying is that we seem to have this structure called the GNU, but she calls it a coalition.
Yeah.
And this is interesting for many different reasons. She says, essentially, this is a coalition between the ANC and us, and the other people don't really matter. They're just there because of the grace of Cyril. He's the one who's making this thing work. And so their own assessment of the situation is that if you remove Cyril out of the question or the equation, there's, turbulence and all manner of things ahead.
Yeah.
And she does consider, assuming that the deputy president of the ANC, Paul Mashatile, ascends after the ANC's own elective conference, which is in about 2 years or so. Now, should that happen, she says that given everything she has heard and read about him, she thinks that there's going to be trouble ahead. So she's non-committal about whether the DA will withdraw if Cyril leaves or, will continue. But she says that the management of the relation is going to be very problematic.
Yeah, if he's not there.
Yes.
Related, I think, to dynamics of GNU, and that's the last publication we're looking at. This is the Sunday World there, and they're looking at the headline, the ANC leaders cross swords over Zuma. Now, this is looking at the Gauteng provincial leadership of the ANC, who seem perhaps to have isolated themselves, if you will.
Yeah.
But where does Zuma feature here? And of course, the implication on the leadership, the PEC of Gauteng.
Yeah, essentially what they are focusing on there is what was supposed to be a motion that was going to be tabled at the NEC conference this weekend by Gauteng, which motion would have suggested, if it succeeded, but it didn't, that Gauteng was going to appeal to the NEC to forgive, or pardon former President Zuma. Now, because this didn't happen, they're then focusing on a teleconference that was held between a number of people, including Kekana, who's the chair of the communication subcommittee, and Panyaza, the ANC chair, and other people.
Yeah.
And in that conference, Panyaza was, upset that there's some misinformation that's going on that suggests that he was a pro Zuma person who was going to table something which was most likely to be rejected, and he was saying, where does this come from?
Yeah.
And so on and so on. So they were trying to clear that, to say, where does this thing come from? Panyaza is saying it doesn't come from him, and who is sponsoring all of this disinformation?
Yeah.
And then there was, apparently some clash of sorts in relation to the genesis of that whole confusion.
All right, we'll have to park it there this afternoon. Thank you very much, as always, Makhuru, for joining us this afternoon. That was Makhuru Safara, who is the deputy editor of the Sunday Times and editor of Times Live, talking to us about some of the stories making headlines this morning. If you missed any, do take a look as well, as we also continue covering the issues right here on the week ahead. More on the other side of this. Do stay with us. Whirlwind of information and insight as we bring you the... Thank you for staying with us. To this now, women remain the most vulnerable in society, and the labour market is no different. Stats SA maintains that women remain less likely to participate in the labour force compared to men. The second quarter of the 2023 shows that the participation of women in the labour force stood at 54.3% compared to 64.9% for men. This is a gap of at least 10%. The first quarter of 2024 unemployment rate shows that at least 35% of women are unemployed, while 31% of men remain unemployed. To now talk through some of these issues and the participation of women in the labour force, we're joined by gender activist Dibiela Motupi. Dibiela, thank you very much for your time with us this afternoon, and thank you for joining us. As it is Women's Month in South Africa, what is South Africa's compliance with international instruments to which it has acceded to when it comes to creating an enabling environment for women's participation and meaningful participation at that in the economy?
Well, good afternoon and afternoon to your viewers. I will say South Africa has tried, and I'm saying has tried because we are not yet where we would expect to be in terms of ensuring that there is equal participation, or rather in terms of ensuring that more women participate in the economy. We are still lagging far behind in the 30 years of democracy. By now, we should be having at least a fair, not even a fair, equal representation within the economy. But unfortunately, that's not the case at the moment. We should be having rights of women in the workforce being protected. I would say at the moment it's not the case. There are laws which have been put in place to ensure that rights of women are also protected. But there are also policies. But still, we still lack. And I will make an example with women in mining. When you look at women in mining, you will find that they are still exposed to sexual harassment in the workplace. When we are in a democracy which is 30 years old, which has come up with laws that protect people in the workplace. Women in the mining industry, and I'm making an example with them because they are forgotten in the mining industry, even with a simple PPE, they still have issues because the PPE that is being used there was designed with a man in mind. And even when they tried transforming it, it became unisex, but unisex with a man's body in a mind. Therefore, they are still not accommodating women. Women in the mining industry, they still have issues in terms of access to sanitary facilities while underground. So if you open doors for women to participate in the mining industry and you have a Department of Minerals and Energy, how then are you not enabling these women to be comfortable when they are at work, the same as their male counterparts? When they go underground in those elevators that they use, they are exposed to sexual harassment because they are so cramped up with their male colleagues. And male colleagues take advantage of that. And when they are questioned, they would always say, we are cramped up, there is nothing we have to touch each other, even when they know very well that they are touching them in a way that these women would not accept. So we still have that problem. We still have, in general, the problem of PPEs, because PPEs themselves are not accommodating for maternity. Women who are pregnant, the PPEs are not accommodating them. I'm talking to this low levels because those are the people we most of the time forget about when we raise issues of gender equality. But still, even those who are in leadership positions in the workforce, we still have men dominating, and there are no legislations that forces employers to ensure that there is equality. Even government itself, by the way, is failing to ensure that there is equality within senior management positions in government itself, even municipalities. So we still have that challenge of ensuring that there is equality. And
Dibiela,
men
what sort of interventions, I mean, have we seen just over the years to try and address some of these issues, right? I mean, you speak about a very particular industry, male-dominated, the mining industry. The conditions when you're underground are quite intense. But you're not calling for comfort for women. You're calling for tools of the trade, right? So that they are actually able to work in those spaces. So how is it that companies, organizations, businesses in sectors such as these are seemingly getting away with it? That they're getting away with not prioritizing these issues?
The problem is the act itself. The Minerals and Energy Act and other labor acts are not directly addressing these issues. And therefore, if it's not written in the act, employers hide behind that. Because they would say, but the act does not compel us to ensure that these rights are protected. The Act does not compel us to ensure that we provide the relevant PPEs. And even when, by the way, they make their employment equity reports and plans, The Department of Labor receives this, and it's very clear that these issues are not addressed. But because there is no the legislations are quiet on this, there is nothing that is being done. The only thing that is left is for us to have legislations which are specific on addressing these issues. Because if it's only policies, employers get away with it because they would say, but it's not enforceable because it's a policy and it's not an act. Therefore, we are not compelled to ensure that we address it within the working space.
The view, Dibiela, is that despite several interventions to roll out economic development programs, initiatives as well, that the majority of these have excluded women or have, women are underrepresented in these. Why is this, right? I mean, it seems as though we are able to measure a number of things. In fact, we even when we refer to these reports, they are able to measure underrepresentation. The expectation then is that there would be sufficient interventions because we know the data with which we're working. But the political motivation doesn't seem to be there. It also doesn't seem to be a cause that gets enough traction nationwide, except when we get to Women's Month or Global Women's Month earlier on in the year, May I think it is, we then start talking about these things, but then everybody goes back to business as usual from September onwards and not address some of these issues. How do we then shift the dial on that front?
Let me start with what you raised, that there are legislations, but we seem not to be achieving this. We must start where we define the kind of society that we find ourselves in. We are in a patriarchal society, and the effect remains. I know that many may argue otherwise, but effect remains. Even our leaders are affected by this, because, by the way, they are from the same society. Wherever males are, they would always want to dominate. It's a fact. You look at our political parties, you look at how decisions are made. If you look even at simple things, the decision of deploying premiers, it tells you the kind of society we are, and it tells you that we still associate power with males. So that's where it starts. So if we still continue associating power with males, it is evident that we will never see the progress that we want, because those who are in power would always want to defend their power for the males, not their power to be shared amongst males and females. The only thing that needs to be done to change the narrative is for gender activists and civil society organizations to come together and lobby and advocate for the change that we want to see in terms of ensuring that there is equal representation, in terms of ensuring that women's rights are being protected and they are being taken care of. Because like you said, every time in August, the government will make the noise and it ends on the 31st of August. They will never say anything about women beyond that. You listen to, at the moment, they have an opportune moment because most of the state of the province addresses are being done in this month. But you listen to them or you go and check them, even those that have passed, even the State of the Nation address, and look at how many issues of women have been addressed. It will be one sentence or at least two sentences. But even when you listen to the sentence, there is no substance.
I have to just interrupt you there because we do have to go to a live briefing. I'm afraid. Let me thank you very much for your time with us this afternoon. That was gender activist Dibiela Mutupi. We'll have to park it there. Let's cross to Boksburg, there where we are expecting to hear a briefing from Steve Mabona. This is about the outcomes of that DC process regarding allegations of racism at the Pretoria High School for Girls. Let's take you there live.
That we respect the decision of the SGB. As we know that this follows a disciplinary hearing that was conducted by the SGB regarding the 12 learners that were suspended for suspected racism and subsequently found not guilty on all the charges. According to the report, The outlining of the charges and the ruling, the SGB found the implicated learners not guilty, of all the charges, of violence and bullying, disruptive behavior, violation of school rules due to insufficient evidence. The charges that were ventilated against the learners, one was the violence and bullying, that is the accusation of physical violence and bullying against other students. The second one was disruptive behavior, which they said they were engaging in actions that disrupted the education environment. The third one was that of violation of school rules, which they indicated that there was a breaching specific school regulations related to the conduct and discipline. The report mentioned a WhatsApp group whose discussions and exchanges within were, examined during the disciplinary hearing, according to the report. And the report indicates that these discussions were part of the evidence presented against the learners. However, according to the SGB, the content from the WhatsApp group was found to be inconclusive and did not substantiate the charges of violence, bullying, or disruptive behavior. The SGB's ruling further stated that inconsistencies in the testimonies and the lack of solid evidence from the WhatsApp group contributed to the decision of the SGB to find the learners not guilty. The department respects the outcome, as the SGB's authority is enshrined in the South African Schools Act of 1996. This is the one that we are amending. Therefore, the department cannot interfere with the outcome, since the SGB is empowered by law to initiate and facilitate disciplinary hearings against learners. As such, any transgression of a school's code of conduct by a learner is the responsibility thereof lies with the SGB to enforce appropriate action accordingly. According to Section 9 of the South African Schools Act of 1996, it outlines the authority and responsibility of the SGB to conduct the disciplinary proceedings within 7 school days. And if learners are suspended, the proceedings must then go ahead and make sure that the process is fast-tracked. Section 9 further states that the SGB can impose other sanctions contemplated in the school's code of conduct or make a recommendation to the department, that is the head of department, as it were, for an expulsion of a learner if the learner found guilty of serious misconduct during a said disciplinary process. Furthermore, the Section 9 deems the MEC as an appeal authority who cannot interfere with the disciplinary processes involving learners unless a recommendation for expulsion was made to the HOD and approved, meaning that if they wanted to expel a learner and the HOD accede to that recommendation to expel a learner, the parents may then appeal to the MEC within 14 days of the notice of that expulsion. Then the MEC can consider, that appeal. Now, consequently, the MEC will be launching an independent investigation into this matter, focusing on determining whether a culture of racism exists at the said school. This recourse, which MEC has decided to pursue, will not investigate the 12 learners, but rather the allegations that racism exists at the school. The decision is further motivated by the fact that the report of the SGB ruling make no mention of racism or discrimination against learners, whereas there has been a strong, I can say the facts that existed at the school with allegation that there is racism at the school. So Section 9 of the Gauteng Education Act 6 of 1995, as amended, states that it is in the interest of the education in the province, that is, the member of the Executive Council may appoint an appropriate person to conduct an inquiry within written terms of reference. As such, MEC Chilwane is empowered to conduct such an investigation. The terms of reference in relation to this inquiry will be outlined so that the investigation, knows on what to uncover. And such terms of reference will then be communicated upon the appointment of the independent investigative body. The MEC has emphasized that the department remains dedicated to ensuring a safe and inclusive environment for all learners, and called upon all concerned stakeholders to allow the school to continue with learning and teaching, as this is a critical time where the examination program is forging ahead, and the disruptions will not be assisting the department, as it were. So until such time we have the investigative body at the school to assist us with this investigation, we call upon activists on anyone that will want to be at the school to give learners a space to be in the classroom so that curriculum delivery can continue. Thank you very much. We can take questions. Yes, ma'am.
Good day. My name is from the Podcast. Upon to your attention, who alerted the education, the Department of Education, and in what form did they alert the Department of Education in this case? And what steps did the Department of Education decide to take when being alerted on the matter?
No, thanks very much. The department became aware because learners wanted to march at the school, and we then sent officials to the school to make sure that we listened to the learners, and the learners were given an opportunity to present their case. That's why those other learners were then suspended, and we also facilitated a process to transfer precautionarily or to suspend the principal, and launched our own investigation internally as the department, look at the allegations that we put on the table, and that investigation continues because the principal is suspended for 3 months while the acting is at the school. So our officials were very proactive in the sense that they didn't wait for the march, but they went to the school to interact with the learners, and as it were, the investigation is now launched. We'll interact with everyone at the school to make sure that we finalize this matter. Tila?
Thank you. Shouldn't the principal then be reinstated, given that the basis that she's suspended on, the SGP has found that there's nothing to look into? Secondly, aren't you contradicting yourself if you have this inquiry that will look at whether there's culture of racism that exists in the school, then in the following line you say that there are strong facts that that racism does exist in the school? Isn't that a contradiction on your part, given even all the allegations? I'm sure parents, MEC mentioned parents that have come forward to you with these allegations of racism. So you do know, according to you yourself, but what's the inquiry about them? Shouldn't this have been done by the department in the first instance?
Now remember, the accusations was more on the learners, on the what was said there. But we said parallel to that, as the department, we launched an investigation, but looking at our employees on the role that they played or did not play when some of the complaints were put on their table, not only the WhatsApp group. So the SGB then focused on the utterances in the WhatsApp group, and they decided, basing themselves on what was probably on their table, not to put anything that has to do with racism in their investigation. Then they exonerated the learners. So, as it were, we've mentioned all the charges that were put, on learners. There is nothing which say anything about racism. So, the MEC feels that they need to investigate all those allegations. That will mean that whoever is going to be appointed will have to go back to the school. But we are putting an emphasis that not specifically for the learners that were charged already, that were taken through a disciplinary process, but look at all the allegations that will be coming. The investigative body will interact with everyone. Contrary to what the SGB did. SGB focused on some of the allegations, and they only interacted with the learners that were complaining and the learners that were charged. So this investigative body will then be looking at the school at this entirety, meaning that they will interact with everyone, and that evidence or anything that will suggest that there's racism or anything, any information will then have to be verified by the investigative body, which will be empowered, on how to gather information, how to investigate, and all that. So for now, we will not be focusing much on what SGB did, because that's why we are saying we respect their decision, because they are empowered by the laws that are in the Schools Act. And our role is quite clear as the department and as the MEC as well. So HOD has its role, MEC also has its role. That's why he feels that we can't leave some of these allegations unattended. Hence this investigative body that will be appointed to go to the school and investigate all these allegations. Sir.
Yes, Shannon Merrick, Kasi Broadcasting. I think, one of the key things on this Pretoria issue is there's people that's opposed to the Bella Bill. What those parents will now say, and those opposed to the Bella Bill, is to say, here's the warning signs. You see, the SGB came to a conclusion, did the investigation, but the Department of Education is still investigating further. How do you respond to those that are specifically not against racism, but against the Bella Bill that the department is, or the Department of Education, or the President will sign soon or not sign?
Bella Bill is to rectify some of the things that we felt as the sector we need to rectify. Hence the process to start, and and we managed to then go to as far as we are at now. Not looking exclusively on a specific matter, but looking at the schooling environment, as it were. There are things that we felt that SGB can do better. We can manage better our schools working together, as it were, because we are responsible for education. So hence the amendments are about to empower us as a department not to interfere, but to come closer where we see that things are not happening the way education is supposed to be delivered, in our country. So that's the intent and purpose, is not to interfere with the governance. Governance will still be prevailing in our schools because governance represent parents. And as it were, SGB is an extension of parents. They would have voted for those parents, gave them a mandate to represent them at the school level. So we will continue to respect, but also the SGB must also take in cognizance that we are responsible for delivering of this education. Any other question? Are we done? Last one we go.
There was another school in Pretoria, it's just that I don't remember the name. There was a problem, actually, where black children were classified for their black hair, wearing their black hair. But after those investigations, I think it happened like a couple of years ago, after those investigations, what did you find in Pretoria, in Pretoria school specifically, that is happening in terms of racism? Because they were, that was a racist remark against their hair, hence they decided all to wear their natural hair.
Yeah, it's actually the same school. We investigated there, but also implemented programs like a diversity program. The educators that were implicated left the system, including the principal, and we managed to, implement the diversity program. But the feelings that, and now we are talking about a new crop of learners. Some educators are still there, but we have decided that we're going to assist the school and implement a diversity management program, focusing on learners, parents, educators, everyone in the school, so that we deal with this challenge that we are sitting with. We just need people to understand that we are diverse, need to be tolerant, against each other, and that's why we felt that we need to implement that program. But this does not suggest that our investigative process is not going to go ahead. That is going to go ahead, and also the investigation against the employees will continue. But also we feel that we need to assist the school community, as it were, to drift away from all these allegations of racism. Thank you very much.
I just want to be clear, because there's something you said and I think we all didn't. Are you saying it's the same school that was, the issue that was raised a year or 2 years ago? It's the same school?
It's the same
where
school.
You removed the principal. Now you remove the principal and there's still racism. Is that what you're saying? Let me repeat what I'm saying.
I heard you.
Yes.
It's the same school that the incident occurred in 2016.
Okay.
Where we intervened and the educator and educators, including the principal, left the system. And we had to go through the process of administering that process of diversity. We did that. In 2016, you can understand that now all those learners are gone. And we're talking about the new crop of learners, parents. That's why we feel that the program must be unleashed to everyone, parent body, learners and educators, and the employees that are not, in the curriculum delivery. So everyone at that school. So that's why we decided to go there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Steve Mabona giving an update there, the Gauteng Department of Education, updating on the outcomes of that disciplinary process regarding the Pretoria High School for Girls racism matter. The 12 girls who were accused of racism there have since been exonerated, and a couple of them who in fact were prefects in that school have since been returned to their positions as well. But the department saying that they will be conducting their own investigation investigation into the matter, looking at whether or not that particular school has an issue with racism. You are watching The Week Ahead right here on SABC News Channel 404. Headlines this hour: government says there'll be no room for negotiations with the so-called construction mafias, who are also largely known as business forums. Residents at Colenso north of KwaZulu-Natal want water challenges facing the area resolved urgently. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has emphasized the importance of rolling out the national health insurance, saying it will close the gap between the rich and the poor. Thank you very much for staying with us. We are coming to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. This is the second hour of The Week Ahead. Remember, you can jump in on the discussion as well by giving us a ring on our studio line. The number is 011714 0680 0681 or 0682. I am Sebenzile Ngambule. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start here this afternoon. Government says there'll be no room for negotiations with the so-called construction mafias, who are also largely known as business forums. Public Works Minister Dean McPherson says those seeking to interfere or delay projects are in for a rude awakening and will be dealt with decisively.
Just recently, 5 men alleged to be from a group known as Boko Haram from Mamelodi were shot and killed in Bronkhorstspruit. The group reportedly went to a road construction site to demand a 30% stake in the project or face disruption. It's believed that they were abducted on their way to Mamelodi following an altercation at the construction site. They were tortured and killed, and their bodies were reportedly dumped in an open field along the road to Cullinan.
We just saw police cars driving past our area, and when we tried to establish what was happening, we saw forensic vehicles going to the direction of the police. Then we realized that's where their bodies were dumped.
We haven't had an incident like this before in the area, and we don't even know who those people were and where they were coming from.
Police are investigating.
All the victims were found with gunshot wounds. The motive for the killing cannot be confirmed at this stage. Police are still searching for the suspects and are appealing to anyone who might have information that can help in the investigation or assist in the apprehension of the suspects to please call the nearest police station or call Crime Stop on 08600 10111.
The Institute for Security Studies says the 30% is a reference to the proportional subcontracting requirement in the Treasury's 2017 preferential procurement regulations.
These directives aim to transform the economy by empowering historically disadvantaged individual and small, medium and micro enterprises. They require that winners of state tenders over 30 million subcontract at least 30% of the contract's value to small local developers to undertake construction work. These regulations have been deliberately misinterpreted by criminal groups who demand a 30% share of state and non-state construction projects.
Lancaster says these groups are more organized and are allegedly politically connected in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga and the Free State. Called business forums by their members, they are largely known as the construction mafia. But government has sternly warned against their activities.
There is no room for construction mafia or people that want to hold up our sites. There's no negotiations. We're not talking to them. We want to get our projects up and running and deliver to our communities on time and on budget. What we need to do is we need to start sending some of these people to prison. If we start to set an example and show them that you can't bring to stop a project and get away with it, and that there are consequences, I think people start to think twice.
According to the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project of 2022, 183 infrastructure and construction projects worth more than 63 billion rand had been compromised by the construction mafia in the country. Mulimone Moto, SABC News, Bronkhorstspruit.
Now, residents at Colenso north of KwaZulu-Natal want water challenges facing the area resolved urgently. Earlier this week, the Utugela District Municipality advised residents in Colenso, Winterton and Bergville to boil their tap water before consumption. This after the discovery of dead fish in one of the main water supply. The cause was initially attributed to traces of E. coli that was detected in the water.
The already water-challenged Utugela District Municipality issued a warning that traces of E. coli were found in the Bergville Canal. It temporarily stopped the pumping of water into reservoirs as a precautionary measure. Following the warning, residents have heeded the call to boil their tap water, while others have resorted to purchasing bottled water. However, some residents say they were not warned about the detection of E. coli in their water.
We didn't get the warning. We only heard from the kids saying they saw it on Facebook that Winterton, Colenso and Bergville dead fish were found, so we shouldn't drink the water before boiling it. Now how are we going to boil so many buckets? That means high electricity costs. They should have made a community announcement to say there was something wrong with the water. We've been drinking that water. Maybe that's the cause of my runny stomach now.
Other residents say water in the area is an ongoing problem as they have been without water for weeks.
Whether there is a warning or not, it's all the same because we currently do not have water. Even if they say we must boil the water, what are we going to boil? Because there is no water coming out from the taps.
A doctor in the area says they have treated patients with gastrointestinal problems that are caused by viruses found in the water.
I believe the water is a health risk. It has been probably in cleanser since the lack of maintenance of the sewage and the water supply, which is probably going back about 17, 18 years. And even then we had problems with E. coli in the water. We also did a research project showing that there were a lot of gastroenteritis related to viral problems as well in the water supply. I think it's been an ongoing problem.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has called for calm.
You know, infections, contagious diseases, they'll keep on cropping here and there in our country. We have not made, we have not done away with them. We are not like Cuba. There will still be cholera, there will still be E. coli, there will still be all that, but we have got systems in place to fight them.
The Utugela District Municipality has meanwhile issued a statement retracting the E. coli warning. The municipality says further tests have discovered that the water is not contaminated as previously communicated. I am Nonhlakane Pamakwaza for SABC News in Colenso.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi has emphasized the importance of rolling out the National Health Insurance, saying it will close the gap between the rich and the poor and ensure that everyone receives good quality health treatment. Motsoaledi was addressing medical students at the Sefako Makgato Health Sciences in Ga-Rankuwa on Saturday.
The health minister says there is money to fund the National Health Insurance.
People keep on saying there's no money. There is, but how is it distributed? 51% of that money goes to only 14% of the population, and the remaining 49% must be shared by a whooping 86% of the population. That is gross inequality. Those people who say they have no money, why don't they talk about this inequality?
He says there's a need to intensify the fight against corruption and maladministration in both the public and private health sector.
We must put those systems. We must put those systems because your question is presuming that maladministration is only and corruption is only in the public sector. There is also in the private sector, in medical aid scheme. We know now there's corruption to the tune of 28 billion rand in that system, but nobody talks about it because why? It's a system of the rich. Okay. Yes, it's the system of the rich. When rich people steal, we start giving it a good name like collusion and all that. When poor people steal, we say it's corruption.
Mtswaledi says documented migrants will also benefit from NHI.
That matter is still being debated. What I know, because I was in Home Affairs, when we give a person a refugee status, that person has got all the benefits you as a South African has got. To vote, that's a refugee. So you can't exclude them from anything that you give to South Africans. That includes health, because they've got that refugee status.
The event saw the official launch of the South African Medical Students Union, a student wing of the South African Medical Association Trade Union, SAMATU. Calvin Dludla, SABC News, Garankuwa, Pretoria.
Post-apartheid South Africa has seen a number of commissions of inquiry to uncover the truth about the various crises that have befallen the country. For months, South Africans are often glued to their screens as they witness revelations about neglect, malfeasance, and other social ills to find the truth. But to what extent do they effectively deal with the identified problems, and are they an effective way of attaining justice?
But where is this evidence? To this day, Chairperson, I'm saying to this day, allegations plenty, many. You can fill up books and books with allegations. But for 16 years, why has nobody produced one single fact?
When people get killed, whether you are black or you are white, whether you are black economic empowerment advocate or whatever, you've got to act. And I acted to try and save the lives of further people being killed.
If I can tell you the details of the plan to kill me in Durban was detailed. Detailed. It involved people brought from outside of the country. Laba kuthiwa amadela kufa, suicidal bombers, were supposed to do to me. And perhaps that will make you realize that for me, the matter is bigger than it meets the eye. And I've been respectful to comrades and to people I know. Maybe I've reached a point where that must now take another backseat. They concoct everything just to deal with Zuma.
Incumbents of the highest office in the land, forced to testify in full glare of the nation, as enraged citizens call for answers amidst several crises.
In recent years, a commission of inquiry have played a major role in South African legal landscape. Often in the context that they have an important political and news implications.
In recent years, commissions of inquiries have played a major role in the South African legal landscape, often in the context that they have an important political and news implications. From the perpetrators of apartheid brutality, facing their victims and their families as they seek amnesty for their actions. The first multi-billion rand scandal in democratic South Africa relating to the arms purchases. Corporate malfeasance as deprived investors seek answers about their stolen life savings. A Soweto derby degenerating into a stampede that claimed multiple lives. Spy allegations against the country's #1 prosecutor. Mine workers and the police being killed amidst a sustained strike for wage increment. And recently, the inquiry into rampant corruption associated with the capture of the state, with the Indian business family central to most of the revelations, the Guptas still on the loose. Post-apartheid South Africa has no less than 20 national and provincial commissions of inquiries, costing billions of rands.
The Zondo Commission of Inquiry has undoubtedly been one of the most compelling commission of inquiry in South African history because of the public concern about the state capture before it was set up and the public prominence of witnesses and other names and the revelations that have emerged. Some of what has emerged has been shocking, how the state has been captured, how the state-owned entities have been captured, departments have been captured, and how there were an abuse of power by those who have the power.
As revelations of the abuse of tax funds kept South Africans glued to their screens, many gasped at the extent to which even the 2.6 trillion rand public funds asset manager, the Public Investment Corporation, was not spared of its funds misuse, cronyism, staff victimization, political interference, and the willful violation of the law. In many instances, it is the whistleblowers who expose the networks and the modus operandi of the wrongdoers, often at great risk to their own lives. The country's revenue collector was also not left untouched, and through the Nugget Commission, its governance failures were revealed.
This commission had far-reaching implications for the national tax system, in that the suspended commissioner of SARS at that time, Tom Moyane, was dismissed by the president from his position, and also the chairperson also recommended that Mr. Moyane pay his own legal bills. And further, the chairperson report made a number of recommendations, such as that the National Director of Public Prosecution, considering also criminal prosecutions in terms of what has happened at SARS in 2018.
But the biggest dent to the democratic South Africa from a human rights perspective was the indiscriminate killing of Lonmin mine workers by the police in 2012, following their wage strike, which led to the Farlam Commission of Inquiry. To date, their families are yet to find justice. Similarly, the victims of the apartheid-era atrocities are still waiting to see justice following the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. While most of the truth may be uncovered, concerns have been raised about whether these commissions are the best way to get justice, 30 years after democracy. Many are losing hope that any redress will ever be seen. And some observers fear that the State Capture Commission's report may also suffer the same fate, gathering dust like many others before it. Particularly given some of the false starts of the few cases that have been taken to court, including the withdrawal of the charges against the accused in the nearly 25 million rand Nulani investment, the precursor to the Vrede scam, which saw millions of rands intended for poor black dairy farmers allegedly being diverted to the Guptas and their associates, as well as the recent striking off the court roll of the alleged over 2 billion rand corruption case against former Eskom CEO Matsela Koko due to unreasonable delays.
The commission's reports are there, very good, well articulated, but I think there is, in terms of those who have been punished as a result of the Commission of Inquiry's findings, I think those are few. I think we don't have the stats. I think we are found wanting in terms of that. I think we have not been doing well as a country in terms of the implementation of the Commission of Inquiry's findings or recommendations.
If the past 30 years are anything to go by, it seems the next 3 decades may even be more revealing as the country's political landscape continues to shift. Nadia Dambuza, Democracy 30.
To this now, research shows that South Africa has the largest share of mismatched workers with a skills mismatch of more than 50%. According to the Post-School Education and Training Monitor from 2019, many students don't do the jobs they have studied for. One of them is a former student at the Northwest University who works as a security officer. He has been employed since 2022, 2 years after obtaining his diploma. According to the Private Security Industry Regulation Act, CSIRO's registration records, over 2.6 million security officers are currently registered. Nearly 600,000 of them are employed by over 12,000 registered security companies.
My name is Ompemiti. I'm 31 years old and I'm from Mafiki. I'm a sports science graduate, but due to reality check, I'm not in sports scientist journalism. I'm a current security officer.
One of many university graduates having trouble finding work in his field of study. As a result, he opted to work as a security officer.
I would say it's a great industry. As much as it's growing, we are the frontliners between the crime and being the good citizens, if I may say so. So I would say it's a good initiative. But then we just become security officers because of life has asked us to. It's not something that we wanted to begin with, but we had to because of the circumstances.
Meanwhile, Molefe says he still intends to pursue his dream.
As much as I'm a security officer, my wish is to continue studying further and pursue my initial degree, my initial dream, which was sports journalism, because I now know where to go.
According to the quarterly labor force survey, for the first quarter of 2024, graduate unemployment rate increased by 2.3%. It has now increased to 11.8% in the first quarter of this year, compared to 9.6% in the last quarter of 2023. Thabiso Moss, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Security experts and the police union have warned that the mass exodus of police officers, mainly from the country's most elite units, is leaving communities even more vulnerable. The South African Police Union has revealed that over 70% of SABC's tactical unit and the Special Task Force members in KwaZulu-Natal have left the force within a short space of time. SAPU says police management and government should be concerned by this.
The South African Police Service's Special Task Force is ranked amongst the best SWAT teams in the world. In this simulation exercise during an air show, the Takis demonstrate their tactical abilities. According to SAPS, the task force handles high-risk operations that require specialized skills, from hostage situations to counter-terrorism. Whether on land, air or sea, the task force is considered to be the last line of defense within the police force. Concerningly now, these highly rated officers in KwaZulu-Natal are leaving SAPS in their droves. Sources say several officers from the National Intervention Unit have also quit. The NIU is also among the lead teams. Its members attend to high-risk operations and assist the task force. Former officers who spoke to the SABC on condition of anonymity cite reasons of poor pay, unfair promotion policy, mismanagement and neglect among the reasons for their resignations. The South African Police Union says of the 53 task force members in the province, only 15 remain.
It is getting worse because if we talk about task force, we talk about the last line defense of SAPS. If now we are sitting at 13 or 15 members, that alone, it tells us definitely that nothing is happening and nothing is being done by the management just to correct or to get to exactly to the point that why are they leaving the special task force.
Most of the officers are being recruited by private security firms that are looking to beef up their operations. Others have been hired by taxi bosses and businessmen.
I think, you know what, we're very passionate in what we do. And I think the people that we recruit are not people that we just look and say, hey, listen, you're a police member, you come here. So we look for the best, we look for the cream of the crop. And if you're an operator on the field, you talk in my language.
SAPU, which represents the majority of the now former task force members, says police management should not take the exodus lightly. Millions of rands are spent on specialized training.
where are these members going to? Is there anyone know where are they with our skills? Because right now, most of the members are hired by the private security companies, and they are training these security companies with our own skills. It means now we've got the anti-SAPS that is operating in the country.
Several areas in KZN rank amongst the most violent in South Africa. Criminals are more organized and better armed, demanding that police up their game.
So actually, it's not a loss to the community that we are we're losing SAPS members. And sometimes I tell the SAPS senior management, guys, don't feel bad that we are taking SAPS members, because you have us, use us. If you want to task us to trace suspects, track suspects, we are there. We are passionate in what we do.
SABC, however, says members resign for different reasons, and that is not a decision within their control.
Every year, we continuously train and deploy members to specialized units. This is an ongoing process to ensure there is no vacuum in terms of deployment of specialized capabilities to address medium to high risk situations across the country.
SAPO says the men and women in blue should be seen as an investment in a country where millions depend on them for their safety. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
Now, the private security industry has come under the spotlight, and some security experts say the Private Security Industry Regulatory Act needs to be reviewed. This follows the recent alleged illegal training of 95 Libyan nationals on a farm outside White River in Mpumalanga. SABC's Mercedes Besant reports.
The critical role played by the private security industry in society has been recognized and lauded.
The private security industry in South Africa plays an increasingly important role in keeping us and our property safe. And most of these companies are well managed and conduct their businesses legally and according to the prescripts of the Private Security Industry Regulation Act of 2001. But there is also a growing partnership between the police and private security companies. A good example is the so-called E2, Eyes and Ears initiative between the police, Business Against Crime and the private security industry, and others.
However, rogue elements in the industry and a lack of proper oversight over some security companies are a concern.
Unfortunately, there also are private security companies that operate with questionable motives and in breach of South African laws, and there are signs of exploitation in relation to gaps in our legislation and our ability to effectively enforce the legislation we do have. According to a recent media statement by CIRA, the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, the private security company Malitis Dai Security Services, or MDSS, who apparently was responsible for the perceived military training of Libyan nationals on a farm near White River in Mpumalanga, had previously registered with them. It is unclear what precisely they mean with previously, but CIRA only became involved with an inspection and subsequent investigation of the so-called training camp when the police raided it on 26 July and arrested the 95 Libyan nationals.
Following the recent discovery of the suspected military training camp for the 95 Libyan nationals, the police minister had to answer difficult questions from the media around issues of non-compliance. The role of CIRA also came under question.
The fundamental thing about CIRA-related compliance is that when the application was granted, which indeed is the case, it requires certain compliances which must obtain within the facility once training starts. Now, the fact of the matter is that there's a gap between what was applied for and what is happening here. I won't go into details; those things will dealt with later.
Mkhunu confirmed that there was non-compliance.
Means exactly that
you got allegations, you got reports that there is a facility like this, and your reaction would be, is it known to CIRA, who is an authority in this? If it is known, what is known in terms of compliances here? And we now know that they are not compliant in terms of what is written down and what CIRA would have expected.
While investigations continue, the lack of early detection of the military camp by law enforcement agencies and the oversight role of the regulatory authority continue to crop up.
This leaves us with obvious questions about the failures of our intelligence agencies in relation to the existence of this camp and the illegal training. But it also leaves us with questions about the failure of CIRA to detect the unlawful activities of a registered private security company, such as MDS, is much earlier.
Parliament's Police Committee also recently emphasized the regulatory oversight.
With regards to CIRA, I think it's crucial that introspection is done with regards to constant oversight from the body with regards to private security training and the private security industry. It would also be unfair to now, negatively influence the private security industry as a whole because of one or two rotten potatoes.
An amendment to the Private Security Industry Act to intensify oversight over the private security industry has also been proposed.
Perhaps one of the areas that should be looked at again is the CIRA Act. For example, Section 33 of the Act, which provides for inspections of security service providers, states that an inspector may carry out an inspection. This means there is no obligation to do so, and I think this is at least one aspect of the CIRA Act that should change. The existence of this illegal military camp is in many ways a wake-up call with regards to our ability in relation to the early detection of such high-risk activities within our borders and our ability to react to it appropriately.
Meanwhile, CIRA says private security companies that do not comply with the Code of Conduct may face fines, suspensions or withdrawal, depending on the merits of the case and severity of improper conduct. The regulator says it's expected to have a media briefing in the coming week. Mercedes Basent, SABC News, Parliament.
The Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority is concerned about the involvement of guards in acts of criminality. In June, City Power arrested 15 suspected cable thieves. 9 of them were security officers contracted by the power utility.
Security guards are contracted to secure premises and ensure the safety of their clients' infrastructure. In the case of City Power, the municipal utility supplying electricity to Johannesburg, those employed are tasked with ensuring that no vandalism or theft occurs, specifically copper cable theft, which is one of the major contributors to power outages in the city, costing the utility millions annually.
We do have what we call direct cost. And direct cost, it's actually the cost of repairing the damage that might have been caused. Comparing the two financial years, 2022-23 financial years, and as well as 2023-24 financial year, we suffered 113 million in 2022-23. We also suffered then 160 million in the subsequent year, the one that has just ended by the end of June, because our year starts July and then up until June. So one can therefore see an increase of around about 53 million from the previous financial year.
City Power has invested in personnel to curb criminality.
Our community intelligence network is already giving us information in terms of certain people who are actually reconnecting those particular people. But going forward, we had a discussion with the police. Well, it was one police station last week where we were looking at how we're going to approach that.
But this did not deter some of its own guards from being part of the syndicates.
Information then suggested to us that the security officers were collaborating with some of the criminal elements from that informal settlement. And there was money, we were told, that is being exchanged, more or less 500 rand per person to go inside. And we acted on that particular information. We mobilized all the necessary resources in the form of police, including our own security service providers. We drew them from other areas. And we were then able to arrest, I think, up to 5 people.
The private security industry regulator expressed concerns with these incidents.
SIRA is deeply concerned when security service providers engage in illicit activities. The security industry is responsible for safeguarding people and assets in our country, making this an important responsibility. As the regulator, we cannot tolerate criminal behavior within the industry. We enforce strict registration requirements, including criminal record checks, to protect the industry from criminality.
Communities have been urged to report any illicit activities to the relevant authorities to curb criminality from within. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, South Africa has seen a massive spike in car hijackings over the years, leading to an exponential rise in the need for enhanced security. The last quarter of 2023 saw the country reach a record high of almost 23,000 stolen vehicles. According to crime statistics from the police, around 66 cars were hijacked daily. This has seen several private security companies working together to share real-time intelligence to deal with car hijackings and other criminal activities. SABC News economics reporter Lekgotla has more.
Vehicles and their components have become gold for criminals that have over time become brazen by not hesitating to take lives in some instances just to get their hands on their car. This has led to a desperate situation for many vehicle owners as they dig deeper into their pockets to protect themselves and their valuable assets. Others are taking professional anti-hijacking training and preventative techniques.
When we start looking at trends, what the South Africans do is they focus on everything except their home driveways. Now you must understand 71% of vehicle hijacking happen in a home driveway. That could be either your own home drive or someone else's driveway. Of the 71%, only about 2% happen in the morning. What we do at the National Hijack Prevention Academy is we do training, specializing in preventative techniques. You know, in my 30 years in the police and 12 years private sector investigating vehicle hijack syndicate operations, we've compiled a training session. For example, why a Friday? Why is it Tuesday high? Why do they prefer the white car compared to the blue car?
The current surge in cases of vehicle hijackings has seen a boom in the private security sector that works with the police for speedy reaction to reported incidents. One such company is Bugle Watch, which has been operating as an armed response for over 2 decades and says they are inundated with calls for assistance almost daily.
We have seen certain factors change when it comes to crime over the last couple of years, which has namely been the more attacking type violent crimes, whether it's child abduction, whether it's hijacking, whether it's vehicle theft. So just to explain today, we would probably not go with anything less than one armed robbery per day. We did have one yesterday, funny enough, but I'm just sharing with the listeners and with the viewers that things have changed when it comes to crime. We need to, as security companies, make sure we're at the forefront of technology when it comes to fighting these crimes. And just so many times you see even vehicle parts being stolen, headlamps of VW vehicles. There's a market for it, somebody wants it. And you won't believe what I see on a regular basis where individuals have planned, they get out the car, and in less than 30 seconds both the headlamps are out of that car.
As police battle with growing cases of vehicle hijackings, private security companies have seen a need for a central crime intelligence network infrastructure that will ensure synergy between the police and the private security sector. The Civilian Intelligence Network has set up command centers across the country with an emphasis on a coordinated approach to crime.
It's a very simple matter. If you look at what's been happening is each person has got a technological advantage or he's got a platform. So be it license plate recognition, be it artificial intelligence, radio communications, manpower in the streets. And these do not normally share intellect with one another. Like, for example, where you are now, we create a nodal point. It's called an OCC. This one is North, Johannesburg North. And in this nodal point, we communicate with all security companies in the vicinity. So although we're in one arena of one company, all other companies have a synergy with us as the Civilian Crime Intelligence Network. So if we see that there's a vehicle that's been hijacked, it gets communicated via the radio right here to our partnerships.
Crime experts believe a better relationship between the authorities and the public will also go a long way in bringing the cases down, urging the public to report these crimes when they happen.
The police cannot work without the public. Therefore, the public and the police must work together with government, and government must do the proper funding, give the infrastructure, give the support, and work hand in hand with the authorities.
Vehicle owners have been urged to never let their guard down, but to comply with the instructions of the criminals to save their lives. Carjackings remain most prevalent in the country's most populous regions of Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape, with those in the industry believing that the numbers can be brought down and lives saved, with greater focus also on the black market and panel beaters. SABC News in Johannesburg.
The security services sector is big business in South Africa. There's just shy of 200,000 police officers to cover the whole country, and in an environment where the crime rate continues to rage out of control. As of March of 2023, there were just over 19,000 registered private security businesses with over 560,000 personnel. And given the demand for these services, it's a very competitive space, with emerging private security companies also looking to get a foothold in the sector.
Njayeli Security Services is in the business of physically guarding property and VIP protection services, among other roles. Operating for over a decade, it services both private and public sector clients, including state-owned enterprises and municipalities around the country. In a very demanding space, it has to compete with bigger and more established security companies, which includes complying with many rules and regulations as set out in the Private Security Industry Regulation Amendment Act of 2021. Compliance, which is necessary to ultimately ensure good conduct in this arena, usually comes with costs, and being a relatively smaller company, it's sensitive to negative practices.
There are so many challenges in terms of late payments, which also affect us so much as a small business, because if you don't get paid on time, it means you need to go to either banks or other places to get a loan. And finally, when you get paid, you don't get paid with those interests that you need to pay back. So, which then affects your profit margins.
Njayeli says it's had to invest in technological solutions like surveillance equipment and other relevant industry gear to stay on top of the game and to remain competitive. While this is costly, the company says it's imperative to remain relevant, retain and attain new customers. As it looks to expand and invest in the business further, it cites access to funding as one of its biggest challenges.
As a small business, it's quite difficult to access funding, because wherever you go knocking on those doors trying to get funding, they want to make sure that you'll be able to pay back the money. And for you to be able to prove that you can pay back the money, you need to maybe have some sort of capacity in or money that you will put in yourself, which sometimes is a bit difficult as a small company.
Njayeli notes that the security industry is a tough and dangerous space to work in, and that additional costs also have to be incurred to safeguard its personnel in the execution of their work, ensuring that backup systems are in place to aid in sticky, potentially life-threatening situations. Nompumelelo Ziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Thank you for staying with us. To this now, Jurassic Park came to life for Dinosaur crazy kids, and Kimberly In the Northern Cape, life-size science animatronic dinosaurs that capture the imagination are being exhibited in the city. The realistic dinosaur creations delight dinophiles, both the youth and, well, the no longer so young.
They may have been extinct for millions of years, but they've been fascinating children for generations. The feared T-Rex, the scary pterodactyl, and the timid Brontosaurus are among the near life-size moving creatures from the past. An experience that both delighted and was a bit scary.
They are nice, and this one is a predator. It hunts for food. They went extinct 65 million years ago. It's a truly a pleasure to see them.
I think dinosaurs are alive.
What is your favorite dinosaur and why?
A velociraptor, it can run really fast. It was really amazing.
Why?
Because I like the big T-Rex that was the last one behind, away over there.
The massive exhibition will visit more than 20 cities over the next year.
It's quite an educational exhibition because kids in preschools, they learn about dinosaurs. So when we bring dinosaurs here, it's an additional, it's a value addition to what they are learning as they see now the dinosaurs, the real size of the dinosaurs, the sound and the color. So it's quite an important event because the tragic story of the dinosaurs also is creating awareness to the general public to become aware that a human species can also become extinct because we have got the global warming and climate change that we need to really look into.
A blast from the past that is sure to capture the imagination of yet another generation. Ulrich Hendricks, SABC News, Kimberley, Northern Cape.
And that's it for the week ahead. Thank you very much for watching. The news continue at the top of the hour. From myself, Sebenzile Nkambule, and the team here at Studio 11, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday further. Until next time, take care.